Taoiseach, in relation to children, I just want to refer to a case of a couple who have 3 children, aged 16, 14 and 10, who have been homeless for 2 years. They don't want to bring their young children into homeless accommodation because they're terrified for them, particularly for their daughter, who they think would be very vulnerable. The children, as a result, are now staying with their 72-year-old grandmother on camp beds and the grandmother's bed, and the parents are couch surfing separately, and the family have been separated for over a year. There's no available properties, and they're being overlooked by homeless services because, quote, they're not engaging with homeless services, i.e. they don't want to go into hostels with their family. So that case to me highlights a very, very serious problem we have in terms of child homelessness, Taoiseach, and I believe we cannot be putting families into that situation where the only option available for them is to bring children into completely unsuitable conditions.
That we are working on this. Just in relation to modular classrooms, often the reason why the Department of Education offers modular classrooms is because they can be done quite quickly and they're needed quickly, and also they can be of extremely high quality. And I have a number of in my constituency, and you know, I think people, when they hear modular, sometimes they think of a prefab of old. Some of these buildings really are top class, and unless you were told they're modular, you wouldn't even know in some cases. I hear what Deputy Murphy has to say about new schools. It was a pleasure to open Kingswood Community College in his constituency there the other day. Oireachtas and Kerr National School in Tipperary in my own constituency only the other day, and looking forward to opening the Evan Rice School in Castleknock in a few days' time. And when you see these new school buildings, you really see how wonderful they are, how high quality they are, what's possible. But it makes the old buildings seem all the more worse. And I have the same experience when it comes to new hospital wings. It really reminds you how much more we need to do when it comes to replacing old infrastructure, not just building new infrastructure. We have a school building budget now of about €1 billion a year. It's never been higher. It's a huge programme underway. Can we increase it more? Yes, we can. And we'll consider that as we review the NDP thresholds. But there are real constraints. There are only so many builders out there. There's only so much steel. There's only so much concrete. And we're starting to run into constraints that are not about money. And we can increase the funding, but that will speed it up. It'll also increase the cost. But like I say, I totally understand where the Deputy is coming from on that. On the staffing levels raised by Deputy Murnane O'Connor, she's right to say that we have more teachers now in Ireland than ever before, and pupil-teacher ratios are at or close to an all-time low. On the specific issue, I'll have to come back to her. I just don't know enough about it and don't want to give an incorrect answer, so I'll ask Minister Foley to come back with a detailed reply. On children with additional educational needs, as was raised by Deputy Moynihan and Deputy Batchik and others, we have a dedicated minister responsible for special education needs now for the first time ever in Minister Madigan. A very substantial budget, I think about €2 billion, nearly a quarter of all our education budget now goes on helping children with additional educational needs. More SNAs all the time, more special classrooms all the time, or more special classes all the time rather, and some new special schools. But am I satisfied? No, I'm not, and I don't think I could be. And anybody who attends their constituency office or constituency clinic and hears the number of stories of children who aren't getting the help they need early enough couldn't possibly be satisfied. But we're doing more every day, every week, every month, and that's going to continue. Just in relation to the issue of teacher shortages, which are occurring in many schools, raised by Deputy Barry, accept that this is an issue. I know of quite a number of schools, not just in my own constituency, but in others where student choice and subject choice has been restricted. There are a lot more subjects than there used to be, so it is harder to fully staff all the subjects than it would have been in the past. But it is a shame to see student choice being restricted in that way. It's one thing not to offer a subject, it's another thing to take it away. And I know that's happening in certain instances too. And Mr Foley is working on this and seeing what options are available. But as is the case across our economy, public sector and private sector, low-paid jobs and well-paid jobs, we're at full employment. And there are shortages across the board, and even increasing pay doesn't necessarily solve the problem because of full employment, and that's particularly the case when you've an international labour market for particular skills. But anything we can do that we believe will work, we will do. I can't go into the details of the individual case that Deputy Boyd Barrett raised without knowing the details. But if he wants to pass them on to me, I'll see if we can get a reply from the Minister for Housing on that specifically. And then just in relation to matters that Deputy Tobin raised, I think he's right. If children are engaged in violence and serious crime, there have to be consequences, but I really think that it has to be done on an individualised basis. Nobody wants to see a child being criminalised or getting a criminal record or having to be put in detention, and that's why there are alternatives in place. But it does depend on the individual case, the gravity of the crime, the circumstances around it, and what's best for the children involved.